Hello again, everybody. Welcome to Tiger Sidelines on MC22. Gabe DeArmond's here. So is Dave Matter. I'm Bo Bayman. About a week ago, after a loss to Texas A&M, Conzo Martin really got after his guys and questioned their toughness. After a 1-1 week in where they beat Arkansas at home in the Rally for Ryan game, fifth win in that game in a row, and then played pretty well at LSU, which is one of the leaders of the conference. This, I think, is what fans wanted to see. I mean, yes, you're not going to win every game, but a 4-point loss at LSU is nothing to sneeze at. And the win at Arkansas, even though they got hammered by Tennessee last night, I think that's a little bit of progress.
Yeah, and neither game can you come away and say, gosh, they didn't play hard.
Yeah,
or,
right.
Man, they look lost out there. They look disinterested. I thought at LSU they gave just about everything they could. I mean, they're a shorthanded team, we know that. And even when healthy, they're still not nearly as talented as LSU. They led for about 33 minutes. They were up by 12. It wasn't the blown lead that they had against LSU last year. This one was just much more gradual, and it kind of felt like, gosh, they're not going to be able to protect this long enough. And LSU just their better players made better plays down the stretch.
It's one of those things, too, as you're watching the last week, to me, Gabe, it's like, well, where's this team been?
Right. To kind of play devil's advocate, if you had played that way at South Carolina and twice against Texas A&M and against Charleston Southern, this season looks different.
Yeah.
And I think that goes a little bit to what Conzo has said, which is, there's not a lot of margin for error. Like, these guys have to understand what it takes every single night. And, it's not complicated. Look, Missouri missed a couple open shots, and then Darius Days picked up a loose ball and heaved a 12-foot hook shot into the, I mean, there's not a lot of analysis that has to be done.
And when you go back to the Arkansas game, here's a game that they really controlled the whole way. And even with all of that, there was a chance for Arkansas to win at the end of regulation.
There was, and they didn't make the right plays down the stretch, and Missouri did. Missouri protected the ball. They made their free throws. They did all the right things to win a close game, which is something that we haven't really seen from this bunch very often. And, Arkansas, they weren't healthy either. They're missing Isaiah Joe. They're not nearly the team that they were at the beginning of the season. But that game, you give Missouri credit. I think you give the crowd credit. I think they gave a lot of energy, and the players fed off that. It's not a mystery. You see this team play better when there's some fans there to support them.
And they raised $80,000 for pediatric cancer research in a game that continues to be great. I mean, again, they've won every one, the fifth one in a row, but it really gets the crowd energized. It gets the team going.
Yeah,
too.
and you'd like to see it when they can get 15,000 people there for it.
Right.
Conzo said after the game and ruffled a few feathers because he didn't preface it with, we have to do our part. But, I mean, what comes first? Does the team play well and so people show up, or do people show up which makes the team play better? And look, I can't give people a reason they should necessarily go invest their time and money to go to those games for a middling team, but it does make a difference,
The answer probably is you got to win, and then they'll show up. Yeah.
You would hope. I mean, I don't think they're ever going to sell that place out again unless something dramatic happens to the roster or something. I mean,
they could average 10,000.
They could average 10. You know what? Like last night too, LSU they announced like around 10. And Tom Hart and Andy Kennedy just kept saying during the game how quiet it was. So,
yeah.
And they're a top 25 team.
But they're all still hungover from the football season. I mean, that's understandable.
Right. So I think it's what my point is, they're a top 25 team defending SEC champion, tied for first place, and they're not drawing big crowds. That's why I think Missouri 11-5 that they had for Rally for Ryan. I think I don't want to say it's the ceiling, but it's pretty close to it these days.
I mean, the truth is, it's not a good product. And I'm not talking about Missouri. I mean, Arkansas's game before the Missouri game had 55 fouls. Yeah. Missouri committed 32 a couple weeks ago, 59 in the Arkansas game. Last night was 40, and it seemed like, oh, that was good. There weren't that many fouls called.
There was some flow.
Against the LSU team, LSU had a massive game in that they lost to Auburn. It looked to me like Missouri, as you said, Dave, gave everything, but they were kind of fried down the stretch.
Yeah, they looked tired legs. You saw a lot of short shots that, they looked like guys were just kind of worn out. You can't fault guys like Reed Nicko, who last 2 weeks, he's better than Jeremiah Tillman's been all year. I mean, he's averaging, I think, 12 and 9. Jeremiah was averaging 9 and 4, and he played against some bad teams early in the year. So it's hard to blame the guys that are out there. Trey Jackson's looked a lot better. He's getting to play, and what do you know? He's producing. Drew Smith, as they made the point continuously during the game, is playing on one leg. Looked like an all-SEC guard last night. He hasn't every night, obviously. Pinson continues to play better. So they're very limited. We know that, but it's hard to find any fault with last night, other than they just didn't finish.
And I would say the guys on the floor are doing pretty well. I mean, Pinson with 27 against the Arkansas. Reed Nichols been magnificent. And as you point out, Trey Jackson last night finally got off the bench. People have been clamoring for that, and you got to see a little sparkle of what he can do.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously still some defensive deficiencies. I mean, Andy Kennedy pointed out very early, he's the weak link defensively, and they're going at him, and he had 4 fouls in only 19 minutes, but him and Pinson just bring a level of athleticism that nobody else has. When you look at most of these games, I'd say Texas A&M and South Carolina, and I haven't watched Vandy, but I assume Vandy are the exceptions, but everybody else you look at and go, they just look more athletic and faster and better than Missouri. But Pinson and Trey Jackson are the exceptions. Those guys can play athletically with the other good teams in this league.
They play above the rim. Everybody else is below the rim.
I wonder how that game would have been different last night had Reed Nico not gotten into foul trouble. He was playing well, but I mean, gosh, he's gone for stretches because of his trouble.
He's also a guy that he pretty much empties his tank with 25 minutes or so. I mean, there's only so much I think he can play. He's not a 30-minute game guy. He's never has been throughout his career. I just think he exhausts himself out there, and pretty much anytime there's contact with him, they call a foul because he's not the most nimble guy that can kind of maneuver his body around a little bit.
And I understand fans are going to be mad when the free throw disparity is 34-13. But when it happens every single game, Missouri went into last night 324th in the country with 20.6 fouls a game. That number went up. I mean, this team hacks a lot. And they win games either when the officials allow it, like they did against Illinois, or when they face a team that actually hacks more than they do, like Arkansas.
Right. I think one complaint Missouri fans can have, maybe mop up the floor a little better at LSU. I mean, maybe before players slip and fall down. I mean, guys were constantly on the ground.
The other thing is they picked a bad night to have an off night at the free throw line. I mean, when you lose by 4, you only get there a handful of times, but you made about half of them. I mean, that's the difference.
Yeah, I mean, you can pick out, the end of the first half we were talking about. They're up 12, and then within 2 minutes it was 6, and that's kind of when you said they had a chance to maybe give themselves some breathing room, and they didn't. But in the end, again, I think this comes down to they don't have a Skylar Mays or a Darius Days. I mean, they don't even have a Trendon Watford at this point, to be honest. And LSU is something like, 27-5 or something like that over the last 2 years. And like half of those wins are by 5 points or less. Good teams win close games.
Sure.
Bad teams lose close games. There's not that big a difference.
And then back all the way, kind of circling back, we sat here a week ago and said, where is this team going? This has to be an 0-2 week. It wasn't. It was 1-1, and they played better and gave at least fans a shot of hope.
Yeah, and at this point,
not at anything this year.
At this point, looking at the record, I don't think anybody's going to be excited about it. They have to finish 500 to match last year's record, 15-17. I don't know if that's possible. They got to go on the road for a couple. It's possible. They don't play great teams left except for Auburn. So I kind of throw out the records at this point. I think if you see games like last night against quality competition, I think you can feel better at the end of the year, regardless what the record is. If you see more games like they had against South Carolina, Texas A&M, Mississippi State, it's you're going to go in this offseason and gosh, what direction is this thing going?
But how much of it is they went into last night going, we're on the road against the best team in the league. We know we have to play really well.
Right.
And Tuesday night when Ole Miss comes to town, just you see one of these float along, and you play even with Ole Miss 2 days after
and
you
they're
played
playing
even
so well
with
right
LSU.
now. They'll win that game. Yeah.
It's interesting, too, to see if the Arkansas game and maybe after Texas A&M with Konzo, is that a turning point, or is this just a flash in the pan? Because I would imagine they can get up Saturday for Auburn and Red Panda.
Well, there just can't be. There's not a turning point to be had this year. I mean, okay, so they go 500. Great. So what?
And I don't know if there really is such a thing as momentum either when you're going Tuesday to Saturday. Does much carry over? Maybe they find things that work for them. I saw Konzo, Mizzou put out a little snippet of him in the locker room afterwards, and he's like, no one's happy with losing guys. He's like, but I do love the growth. And I do think he notices that. I do think he likes how this team is playing right now. Doesn't like the losing, obviously, and he's not sugarcoating anything, but I do think he likes how individual guys are playing, and when that happens, you see the team play a little better.
So Missouri is now 11-13, 3-8. As we mentioned, they host Auburn on Saturday at 5, and then host Ole Miss next Tuesday at 7:30. So, I mean, it's Tough schedule. They're all tough weeks. I mean, for this club.
Well, certain teams in this league are playing better that were at the bottom. Ole Miss has had, they won 3 in a row. Vandy took it to Kentucky for a while last night. They didn't finish, but Ole Miss is playing better. Georgia's going the opposite direction. Arkansas is going the opposite direction. Missouri, see if they can maybe pull out a few more.
I don't know if you guys saw it. Did you see the Auburn-LSU game? Talk about the top of the conference.
Yeah.
It was
saw
quite
the
a game.
result.
Yeah, quite a game, no doubt about it.
It looks like a different league they play in when they're playing at that level.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Let's talk about the women's team. They beat Georgia 73-65, then they lost to LSU 66-58. The Tigers are now 6-18, 3-8. And it was a good win, and then another fourth quarter loss. And really, a second half loss to LSU.
Tied going into the fourth quarter at LSU, which is a good team, and LSU scored 18 of the first 22 points in the fourth quarter. You're not going to win on the road doing that. Bunch of turnovers.
And Asia Black, she's been phenomenal. She continues to be phenomenal. And really, Haley Frank, I mean, it's those two carrying the way. You want freshmen to be pieces, but they're by far the leaders.
Well, and the good news is they've got 3 more years here,
Yep.
and you would think that means much better things over the next few.
The thing with Blackwell's the turnovers, though. She had 9. No one else had more than 1. And it's a lot of usage because she scores a lot, she shoots a lot, she also turns it over a lot.
It's almost a
one thing
triple-double,
they-
though.
Almost, yeah.
And she has the ball a lot, no doubt about that. The Tigers host Florida on Sunday. That'll be at 2 p.m. So a lot of things going on at Mizzou Arena this week. This is the week where the women host 1, the men host 2. So it's time to see if the fans actually do show up. I don't know if they will or not.
Look, if they don't come out for Red Panda, there's nothing that's going to get them out. I mean, Dave and I will be there.
Red Panda is a show with a basketball game wrapped around it.
Yes.
It's the highlight of the year. Like
No doubt about it.
Okay, maybe behind Rally for Ryan. That seems to be a better cause, but I would donate to Red Panda too.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, your tweets. You're watching Tiger Sidelines on MC22. Welcome back. This is Tiger Sidelines on MC22. Dave Matter, Gabe DeArmond, and I'm Bo Bayman. Of course, we tell you every week we are at Tiger Sidelines on Twitter. Jason has our first one, and he says, do you buy Konzo's conditioning explanation for Trey Jackson's limited minutes? Konzo doesn't seem like the kind of guy to cover for a player like that, but it did strike me as odd. If it is conditioning, that's on Jackson to take care of and not the coaching staff, right?
I thought it was the opposite of him covering for a guy. I thought it was him basically saying the guy didn't work hard enough to get himself in good enough shape, and no, I don't believe it. Like, I didn't believe it when he said it. Whatever the reason is, I don't know, but he played 19 minutes last night.
Right. I thought in that Tennessee game, he came over the bench, he's like, pull me out. I fought.
Okay.
Yeah. He's like, I can't breathe. And I think
But that was a month ago.
Right. But I think Konzo's point was this is why he wasn't playing then. And now he's working in better shape. He was praising him left and right after the game last night, talking about all the work he's done. So I do think it was a factor at one point, maybe not as much as a factor now as it was a month ago.
If you had to be quarantined for 2 weeks, says Adam, what would be your activities of choice? I know what mine would be. Mike Anderson versus the Bear.
There you go. Mine would just be similar to what I do now. I would just hang out and surf the internet and drink in the middle of the day.
I would watch less of this college basketball season. Not just Missouri, but every team. I mean, nothing's good.
Like,
You're right about that.
don't get me wrong, I don't want the coronavirus, but I saw somebody on Twitter say, like, I don't think being quarantined sounds that bad. Like, I don't have to I quarantine myself from Twitter and you people.
Grayson says, does Mizzou have a chance or winning a game in the SEC tournament? Who would the opponent be in order for them to grab a victory?
Yeah, because they're probably playing on that Wednesday
day.
night, the most depressing day in college basketball.
If it ended right now, they'd play Georgia in the first round, just like they always do, and the winner would get South Carolina. So yeah, they have a chance.
Right, they can beat anybody outside of probably Kentucky, Auburn, and LSU. I mean, they could win 2 games. This league isn't good.
Right.
If they win a couple more, I think that should be the goal is let's play on Thursday first rather than Wednesday.
This
big
team,
goal.
Your goal is 10th.
this team, I wouldn't set the goals too high or too far beyond what's right in front of them. Just
Go
do
1-0.
what they did.
Don't fall down on Saturday.
Does Martin get another year, as we've been saying
We're
over and
not
over?
talking to this guy.
After this year or after the following year?
Tiger Sidelines needs to mute this dude on Twitter like I have. We're not answering that.
Given Conzo Martin contract, when is he officially on the hot seat given things don't turn around, says Steve?
I mean, I don't know if next year can cost him his job. But next year is certainly going to, if we're sitting here at this time next year talking about a team that's a couple games under 500, out of the SEC race, no hope at the tournament, I don't know if it costs him his job, but at that point, I'll kind of feel pretty confident this is never going to get where people want it to get.
Right. I don't think Jim Sturk wants to go through another coaching search. The last one I don't think was very fun for him.
I don't think Jim Sturk gets to.
I don't know if he does either. I mean, come on, these are his hires, or these are not just. I'm not just talking about Conzo, but Barry Odom wasn't his hire, but he extended him, and then what do you have to do a year later? So, ADs don't like going through these things. So we'll see.
The great Tom Orff says, Mizzou football, what position area is the biggest concern going into the spring? Receiver?
No, receiver to me is just kind of always secondary. I mean, first of all, it's quarterback just because we don't really know what Sean Robinson is, and the guy who we think is going to be the backup isn't going to be in spring football, but it's the same position it was last year. Like, they have to have somebody. They have to have a grad transfer defensive end at some point because they don't have enough on this roster.
I think the defensive line as a whole, I mean, Jordan Elliott was so good. I think he kind of helped make Kobe Whiteside what he was last year. Now Kobe Whiteside's that guy. Well, can he do what he did last year without an all-American, all-SEC type guy next to him? Other than that, they've got a bunch of guys. Do they have impact SEC players? I'm not sure they do.
Is Jordan Elliott going to be the first Tiger drafted?
I would assume so. I
so.
think he's, second, third-round guy probably.
Yeah, I don't know.
And Albert O has fallen?
Somebody's going to fall in love with him at some point. It's going to reach a point in the draft where they just say, we can't pass up the physical gifts.
Right.
But
I just don't know if anyone would view him as a every down tight end. I mean, I think he's going to be more of a specialist type guy.
And I saw one of you, is it 6 guys going to the combine?
6. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
It's pretty good. It's right in the middle of the SEC. I think the league average was 6.5, and part of that's because LSU has 16 guys going to Indianapolis. But yeah, it's more than a couple other, programs that are doing better right now than Missouri.
So there you go. All right, thanks for all the questions. Don't forget, at Tiger Sidelines, each and every week, before the game, after the game, during the game, we'll answer, well, most. When we come back, we'll talk about the softball start, and the softball team is now ranked after a great weekend. That and more when we come back right here on Tiger Sidelines. Welcome back, everybody. This is Tiger Sidelines. Gabe, Dave, and Bo here. And a week ago was signing day, and after we taped, you guys went to Coach Drinkowitz, his presser. We saw the viral video. I mean, it was a pretty good day, I would imagine, in his world.
it was a good day. I mean, the reality of it that nobody wants to look at, and look, it's not Drinkwitz's fault, but his class was 13th in the SEC, 55th in the country. I mean, it's going to have to be better over the next couple years. And there's reason to think it can be because, like we talked about last week, he won a battle that past Missouri coaches haven't won. So again, this class it's not really on him, but it's also, if this is what you do every year, it's not nearly good.
Right. I think the best thing they probably could have done coming out of that day was sign somebody maybe nobody expected them to. They did that. And make a big wave in some way that get people to notice you. They absolutely did that. And that's something that I think that he knows how things work in 2020. And Mizzou knows, for their credit. They've got a camera on everybody all the time, hoping somebody goes viral. And it got people talking about Eli Drinkowitz that normally would not be talking about him, or the guy who coaches the team that just signed the 13th best class in the SEC.
I liked how he said, I was that excited about everybody. They just happened to film this one. Just accidentally, they were filming this one.
You know, we are older guys. Do other 18-year-olds like to see that, you think?
Well, I don't know if they like to see it, but they will see it because
notice.
all they do see is what is on their phone, and that was everywhere because they don't pay attention to the real world anymore. So they will definitely notice.
Yeah, it can't hurt. I mean, I think most people are going to look at that and go, that's pretty cool. I'd like it if a coach was that fired up when I committed.
And if you're Rakestraw, you got to love it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't put any pressure on you,
Yeah, because I don't know if you're seeing Nick Saban react like that.
Right. Absolutely.
I've seen Nick Saban dance in living rooms on in-home visits, so,
But it was a pretty good day for Missouri because they did make some waves, as Dave said. Speaking of making waves, how about the softball team starting 5-0 this weekend? Tigers now ranked in the top 25. They had a big win over number 7 Minnesota this weekend, and they're back in Florida this coming weekend. They'll play Kansas, number 16 Oklahoma State, number 20 James Madison. They'll play Minnesota again, but a great start for softball.
Yeah, I mean, they're much like the baseball team, which we can talk about too. The end game is their last game of the regular season. They can't play beyond that, but you can. There's something to play for, I think, within yourself, within your team. They set their own goals that are different than normal goals, and give Larissa Anderson credit so far. She's getting this team to have something to play for.
We've talked about how basketball season is too long before. Like, why is softball starting on February 6th? They're going to play 16 home games before they can come home and play a game. And, oh, by the way, there's a 50-50 chance that one's snowed out.
Yeah, really.
I don't understand. You don't have to play 56 games in a season.
It's interesting, too, because the 5-0 start makes people pay attention to them. They get ranked, people pay attention to them, and it sort of brings the NCAA thing because people outside of mid-Missouri who care about softball say, oh, yeah, well, they're not eligible.
Right. And then you've got some Missouri fans who have already asked me, well, do you think if they have a really good season, maybe they'll change that ban? No, it's not happening. They're not playing in the postseason.
And they can't play in the SEC tournament either, so don't forget that. You went to Baseball Media Day yesterday as Steve Beezer and the guys get ready to kick off the season. One thing that I found very interesting for him to say was they think they'll have more hits this year because that was the big problem last year.
He really likes their lineup. He thinks it'll be the most power they've had in a lineup since he's been here. He believes again. I mean, last year they had the highest RPI of any team that didn't make the NCAA field. So they were as close as you can be without making it. He believes this team has a chance to be better, but they obviously can't play in the NCAA. So they've set 2 goals out for themselves. They're pretty ambitious. 40 wins and win the SEC regular season championship. Because really that's all you can shoot for because you can't do anything else. So it's good to have goals, and that's what they're talking about because they know they can't play beyond that. But he really likes their lineup. Pitching, they've always got guys, and they've got a couple good ones in Ian Bedell and Connor Ash. And they'll go with what they have. They got a lot of newcomers too, a lot of transfers.
It will be a start this weekend at Jacksonville State. Of course, both teams have to travel to either, it seems like, Texas, California, Arizona, Florida. So they'll be in Florida. But if they score more runs and they get the pitching, maybe they do have a good season. And Gabe, you can build the even though this season is end of the year, you can still build the program. You have a good year. There's no more sanctions after this.
Yeah, you can. It's so hard in this league. I mean, I don't think this is unusual. I think even if Missouri actually is really good, pretty much every year, like they're picked 6th in the East.
Right.
There's not a single Missouri player on the first or second team All SEC. I mean, it's similar to, a few other sports, gymnastics and some other things. Like, you can be like 18th in the country and 12th in your league.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just how good this league is. And, I know Dave had some pictures and stuff of they're planning to do some facility upgrades. I mean, you've got teams in this league playing basically in minor league ballparks, and Missouri's taken 2 years to raise enough money to put turf in the outfield. Like, it's really tough here.
Yeah, it is.
And I know that they want to do that so they can be out there more. They don't have to shovel the snow off. All these people that have the turf fields, I mean, you can look here locally at the high school fields. They can be out there just because they have the turf.
Yeah, that's part of the incentive. I mean, everybody would love to have a natural grass field. It looks better. It just has a natural feel to it. That's what people want to have in the middle of the country. But it's an efficiency thing. It's a usability. They don't have a practice field they can go to.
Right.
They also, one thing they would like to build, and they got to raise a lot of money for it. They want to put some things up around the stadium that would cut down on the wind, because I think that will help it'll help you on the field, but I think it'll help the fans too. I mean, it'll make the place a lot more enjoyable to go sit through a game in April or May when you're not, freezing and shivering up there.
I mean, I've taken my kids to games in May there where you're in a heavy coat and stocking.
It's not enjoyable.
It's miserable.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you start in February, they can't play here.
It goes without saying.
They try to get home games by St. Patrick's Day. I mean, and that's the card
I think it's like March 6th is the home opener.
So there you go. Wrestling lost to Arizona State. Arizona State ranked in the top 5, 21-13. The Tigers are now 10-7, 7-0. They traveled to SIU Edwardsville tonight, weather permitting, and if they win that, they'll win the outright MAC championship. I don't know where you go from here. They got Iowa State in a couple of weeks. That's the last home duel. And then you just kind of individually go for what you can do at nationals and in the MAC championships. And I think the goal might be top 10 this year.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those weird years where they're not going in like, I'm sure they'll talk about wanting to get on the podium, but that's going to be hard to do. So it is more about the individual guys.
I mean, everything we've talked about, like for 22 minutes, has been, well, this is bad, and this is bad, and this is bad, and now we're like, geez, wrestling might only be top 10 in the country.
That's true. Number 21, gymnastics, scores a season best 196.5, but they lose at number 7, Alabama, as we have all talked about. The Tigers will compete in the Mardi Gras Invitational on Friday, February 14th in St. Charles against LSU, Iowa State, and Lindenwood. So, I mean, the team continues to get better and be competitive, but not winning dual meets.
Yeah, we're going to have Barry Booker come in and do a guest segment on gymnastics, I think. He'll have some time on his hands going forward.
He probably certainly will. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Tiger Sidelines. We'll talk to you next week and see what the Tigers can do on the court and elsewhere around the campus. For Gabe DeArmond and Dave Matter, for Bill and Matt and Brian behind the scenes, my name is Bo Bayman. Thanks as always for watching Tiger Sidelines any way you consume it, but hopefully you've been watching it on MC22.